Hi, it's me, Roosevelt, and welcome to my Ookie Spooky Halloween episode. Genshin has now become a sci-fi horror game. The sky is fake and it's more terrifying than ever. So Natlan is absolutely getting dunked on by the Abyss as this eldritch abomination appears in the sky, and Mawika starts blasting at this thing, destroying it, but also revealing fragments of some celestial body drifting in the emptiness of space. Mawika says nothing like this has ever been seen and plans to attribute this to an astronomical anomaly. Now, we've known about the fake sky and we've had a lot of foreshadowing of finally breaking through the firmament, with imagery of the sky cracking like glass. For example, like in Fischl's Golden Apple Archipelago domain, in Nouvelette's teaser, and also the space whale. We also had the sign of Apausha, which was also described by Catherine as an astronomical anomaly, with abyssal filth pouring out of it. Nasejuna had clarified, though, that although the abyssal goo was real, the sign was only an illusion, like a reflection on the water's surface. But back to Natlan. As a cavity connoisseur, I can tell you that this hole in the sky looks pretty unique. You can see a mesh, maybe like pixels, with these glitchy edges, these sussy rocks, and beyond that, a dark red sky. Very atypical of the sparkly fantasy aesthetic we usually get. So I just want to talk about the fake sky a bit and what lies beyond. I'm going to give a super brief recap of what we know, and then I want to share some more creative ideas I have. Particularly how one book that we've had from the start of the game may have foreshadowed the horrors of space, and more precisely, asking the question, is our existence and all of our pain and suffering just the passing idle thoughts of a higher dimensional being? Listen, I did say this was the Ookie Spooky Halloween episode. It's just less of the fun, sexy werewolves and vampires Halloween and more of like existential horror kind of thing. I'm really fun at parties. Okay, so here's the fake sky. And we first learned about it in the limited time event Unreconciled Stars during patch 1.1. I say we as if I was playing then. I was not. I started during the end of Zhongli's premiere banner and thought he was useless because I didn't realize I could hold his skill. Anyway, later, Dotori tells Nahida about the fake sky. And this is the secret hidden within Irminsul. So the firmament seems to hold two main purposes. One is concealing Teyvat's true history. Eboshi tells us about the time before Sun and Moon, when the unified civilization flourished. But a catastrophic war broke out, and Enkanomiya sank. Eboshi emphasizes that this knowledge must remain a secret. After all, knowledge of before Sun and Moon led to Oribashi's death. Now, this time before Sun and Moon was also the era of Seelies, now confirmed to be angels, and also the three Moon Sisters. The book Moonlit Bamboo Forest says that the three Moon Sisters would take turns on their silver chariots thrice a month. Eventually, though, they would turn against each other, leaving only the corpse of one in the sky. Interestingly, Fischl's signature bow suggests a more nuanced version of this story. It's set in the book universe of Flowers for Princess Fischl, where Book Oz tells this tale. Two of the three bright moons were shredded by a sword that tore the horizon asunder, left in smithereens too small even for the mystical sight of the princessin. Well, these fragments certainly look like a moon shredded to smithereens. And personal guess here, I think the sword here is supposed to be a holy blade, or as you might know it better as, a descender, or someone with a will to rival a world. But prior to this moon shredding, these two moons had caused the perfumed sea of the primordial universe to shine, and stirred up the beasts of the Arianrod realm. Arianrod is a figure from Welsh mythology, and it means silver wheel. In Chinese, it's closer to Aranya, which means forest, as in Aranyaka, the forest book. But in this context, it could refer to remote wilderness or an isolated distant place like a Buddhist monastery or even a cemetery. This is all to say, it sounds like the two moons had riled up some beasts from a distant place and were then shredded by a sword. Now, there are a lot of creative directions we can go in with this sort of storyline. But I'm not going to speculate much on it because this was just a segue. I'm not really sure what these beasts are referring to, but I do want to get into some beastly monster talk. Because the other purpose of the firmament, and probably more importantly, seems to be protecting against outside threats. In The Wings of Feasting, Alice mentions that Teyvat's borders are weakening and she has to go fix them. So for a while there has been an implication that these borders serve a protective purpose. And of course, the space whale kinda confirmed that. As for what these threats are, well, according to Perrin Harry, there's a lot of threats out in the Starry Sea. Conria, due to its unique location, and likely not protected by the firmament, had to develop weapons to combat catastrophes from leaking in. The firmament itself seemingly has been breached before, though, in particular by malevolent forces from the abyss. The sign of Apausha as we saw it was an illusion, but it was a reflection of abyssal filth seeping in from beyond the skies during the cataclysm. And HOYO-Mix is similarly such a sign, spitting out abyssal tumors to corrupt the land. Even the imagery of the Eye of Deshret evokes something similar, with a sigil in the sky pouring out forbidden knowledge onto the land. But now I want to talk a little bit about the nature of the abyss, and the effect it has on humanity. So, this thing in the sky is called HOYO-Mix. Many have already pointed out this is an anagram of Yog-Sothoth, which is an outer god or cosmic being in H.P. Lovecraft mythos. Now, I've long been a fan of this genre, and one of my very first videos back in 3.0 drew a comparison between the abyss and cosmic horror. Lovecraftian horror, or more broadly existential or cosmic horror, is a genre focused on the insignificance and puniness of humanity in the universe. It's all about the fragility of the human psyche and draws from the fear of the unknown and the other. It's all about fantastically powerful and alien beings with form, thought, and language incomprehensible to the tiny human mind, thus often leading to madness, mania, and dread. In Genshin, there are a lot of references to cosmic horror associated with the Abyss. Just to rapid-fire a few. First, there's the cursed city of Gurabad, which, as a reminder, Lilupar had used the Abyss to punish Gurabad, and everyone allegedly turned into monsters as the city was consumed by a plague from a yawning chasm. The mysterious parchment and two related achievements in Sumeru reference the adventures of Hassad in the cursed ruins of Gurabad, which draws a lot of inspiration from Lovecraft's short story, The Nameless City. The parchment script actually lifts a quote directly from the short story. "That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die." The parchment also mentions the sands of Al-Azif, which seems like an obvious nod to the fictional grimoire, the Kitab al-Azif, more widely known as the Necronomicon. Outside of Sumeru, the Narcissan Kreutz questline also has some references, like the City of Yith, the Shadow over Petrichor, Basil Elton, and the White Ship, and so on. Which makes sense given their interest in abyssal power, Conrian technology, and everything arcane and esoteric. There's also the Rift Wolves, who are likely a reference to the Hounds of Tyndalos. And just the chasm in general with its corrosive darkness and all this mud and goopy miasma. But we also have these new enemies, the Tenebrous Mimiflora, who appear plant-like and imitate living beings in an attempt to copy the tree-like world. I'm pretty sure there's an important tree in Genshin somewhere it's referring to here, but this appearance is superficial. This is all just biomimicry and trying to steal identity. In The Mountains of Madness by Lovecraft, the Shoggoths are formless, amoeba-like creatures that can create limbs and organs at will and imitate any form or thought. I mean, really, biomimesis is just a big horror trope in general, such as in one of my absolute favorite films, The Thing, a wholesome movie about a group of dudes bonding in the icy wilderness after they befriend a stray dog. Anyway, I digress, and this isn't a comprehensive list, but like I said, a key feature of cosmic horror is the fragility of the human mind. And I think that the Abyss embodies the horror of the unknown and the madness it inflicts. Here's a few examples. Deshret toyed with forbidden knowledge, and the minds of his people were filled with crazed whispers, as they would succumb to a body horror of a mysterious plague. There's Zhuchong's incoherent ramblings about a black watchtower as she's attacked by rift wolves. And also consider the deathly statuette's voice calling out, or even an academia team hearing strange, disturbing sounds underground. So there seems to be a theme of hearing or even seeing some weird things. The Abyss is this incomprehensible, chaotic entity that not only encroaches upon the body, but also the mind. Hey, speaking of going crazy though, which I do on the reg, there's one book that drives me absolutely insane, and it's probably been in your archive for almost 4 years now, if you've been playing that long. It's a book called Vera's Melancholy, and it has a few Lovecraftian references itself. And it may share a common theme with the progenitor of God Azathoth, the inspiration for that thing in the sky. The book Vera's Melancholy is basically a space opera, and it follows a bored teenage girl named Vera as she leaves her dinky town to explore the universe. With her is her cowardly best friend Sachi, a space wizard named Ike, and a princess who has lamprey hands. Like she eats people's eyeballs using mouths in her hands. Depending on which eye, it either means domination or love, which I may need to clarify to some of y'all that those are not the same thing. Anyway, I digress. This book is interesting because it's probably not from Teyvat, as in, it's from beyond this fake sky. I mean, it's very sci-fi with space pirates and galactic empires, and at the end, the editor makes a note that the author is gallivanting around the universe, and the editor begs him to please come back and write more. The book also has some weird real-world references, like Greece. It doesn't just reference Greek mythology, it recognizes Greek mythology. It just feels a little fourth wall breaky. Anyway, the book is told as a series of zany episodes of space adventures. In the beginning, when Vera first meets space wizard Ike, Ike is fighting off a tentacle monster. It's an old one from the Large Magellanic Cloud. This Large Magellanic Cloud is an actual dwarf galaxy IRL, but also, in Lovecraft mythos, the Large Magellanic Cloud is said to be the birthplace of Cthulhu, who is probably the most famous classic eldritch horror. After this encounter, Vera sets off with her 3 friends to bullshit around in space for like 10 volumes. It's hilarious. But there's something extra interesting towards the end of the book in the volume called Death Awaits in Abyssal Waves. Space wizard Ike refers to a sword they received from the old ones in the beginning of the story. This sword was supposed to propel destiny forward, but instead, Vera accidentally cut herself on it. She succumbed to a malicious ancient virus and her life was sapped from her. This marks the climax of the story, and the final volume is dedicated to saving Vera. So, you might even be able to say the overarching plot of Vera's Melancholy revolves around cosmic horror MacGuffins. There are a lot of really sussy things about Vera's Melancholy, which I touch upon in my old video on the book, but here's one final thing I don't think I've addressed there. Bear with me for the next few minutes. This may cause some genre whiplash, but I promise we will circle back to the horrors TM. The title of Vera's Melancholy seems to be a reference to the 2000s anime The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya is a slice-of-life comedy about an eccentric girl, Haruhi, who is super bored with her life, so she tries to make it as interesting as possible. And she creates a club to investigate the supernatural with a ragtag group of friends, aliens, time travel, and espers. Spoiler alert for a 20-year-old anime series, 321, she actually is basically the god of the universe, and she has powers that allow her to change reality based on her imagination. The friends who joined the club are actually supernatural entities who are there solely to keep her entertained. See, she doesn't know she has this power, so things could really go wrong for the universe if she wished for the wrong thing. She's basically an unknowing god with the power to destroy everything. I think the superficial parallels with Vera and Haruhi being teenage girls bored out of their minds with life are obvious. They both want to go on all these wacky, zany adventures with time travel and aliens. But it would be interesting to consider if maybe Vera is also changing reality. That is, literally creating her space adventures with the power of imagination. Major disclaimer here, there's nothing in the book that really supports this, I think, but honestly, it doesn't matter. The sole reference to Haruhi Suzumiya is enough to fuel my batshit insane crack stuff, which starts now. This is where things devolve into something real silly, so don't take me seriously, ever! But also, hear me out if you're interested in the cosmic horror Genshin connection here. So in Genshin, we already have some existing themes of turning thought into form and fantasy into reality. We got an early taste of something like this back during the first Sub-Zeru's festival. It was a shared dreamscape, but as the host dreamer, Nilou could change the flowers or get rid of Azar at will. Or more recently, Nilou as the forest fairy in Simulanka gave a name to Padisara, thus giving her life and becoming a squirrel mom. Or, more generally, consider how Teyvat, through Simulanka, had been likened to a storybook, with Alice making Anders' daughter's fantasy truth to true fantasy. And we could argue this could be the core concept also behind alchemy and the magic of Narcissenkreuz. It's the power of imagination. But Ruse, you might be saying, what's the cosmic horror connection here? And what's with that title? Well, this isn't just about changing flowers or being a squirrel mom. In the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the universe is likened to God's dream, with Haruhi being that god, able to destroy or create it entirely. In fact, she almost does destroy the entire universe. So here's what I'm getting at with a cosmic horror thematic connection. As it turns out, one of the top dogs in Lovecraftian horror is very similar to Haruhi. Azathoth, also known as the primordial demiurge, does exactly this. Oh, also, he's Yog-Sothoth's grandpappy? Azathoth is known as the Lord of all things because everything that exists, all of reality, is just a creation of his thoughts. He's a supreme omnipotent being, or the absolute god. But he's also called the blind idiot god because he sits at the center of chaos where its flutes pipe mindlessly. The point is, he isn't aware of what his thoughts are conjuring. His ideas simply just exist. This is more in the expanded mythos, but all of the universe in existence is even described as Azathoth's dream. Thus the monikers the Blind Dreamer and the Sleeping Chaos. Now, I'm not saying Haruhi was inspired by Azathoth at all, but I will say I am not the first person to bring up the similarities. I'm also not necessarily saying Genshin made this jump either, but I will point out this interesting tidbit. Speeds pointed out to me an interesting connection. It's been suggested that Lovecraft derived the name Azathoth from the historical Azoth, which is a universal solvent in alchemy. In Genshin, the dust of Azoth is the transmutation material that converts boss drops, converting things with the power of imagination, you could say. So, let's imagine then. Just let's be creative. Perhaps it doesn't seem like such a stretch to consider that maybe Vera's melancholy references, combined with the themes of Sumeru and Simulanka and etc., have been hinting at Teyvat being a mindscape or even dreamscape imagined by a creator or a higher dimensional being. This is speculation, but my first guess would be the primordial one or the heavenly principles. I mean, especially given that the heavenly principles seem to be sleeping right now, maybe they just only wake up when the dream ends. Also, and I know I've put a lot of elbow grease into solidifying the connection between the abyss and cosmic horror, but at the same time, the heavenly principles are an alien descender after all. And who knows what exactly is going on beyond the firmament? Consider this though. We do also have another alien who Albedo did a few experiments on, resulting in a very abyssal purple goo in a flask. Suspicious. Okay, one last thought on this topic, and it's more of a fun crack snack. I already said, do not take me seriously at this point. I'm having a goof. So, Lovecraft was heavily inspired by the works of Lord Dunsany, an Anglo-Irish writer who was also really into big cosmic world building. Azathoth specifically seems to be inspired by a Dunsany god named Mana-Yud-Sushai. In the Gods of Pagana, the chief god Mana-Yud-Sushai created all the other gods. His son, a drummer, lulls Mana to sleep with his drum, and he keeps his beat to keep Mana asleep. Because if the drummer were to stop, then Mana would awaken, leading to the destruction of the world. Now, some of you might feel like the name Pagana is familiar. And I don't like to mix up my Honkais with my Genshin, but in Honkai Star Rail, Pagana is the name of Akavili's home planet. Akavili is the Aeon of the Trailblazers and the Astral Express, and Pagana is the starting point and final destination of the Astral Express. It may even be the planet seen on the start screen. So you could say that Pagana, and by extension, Lord Dunsany's Gods of Pagana, are kind of important to Honkai Star Rail lore. Now, this is extra on my mind because people have been speculating about these weird patterns on the Shattered Moon, and how they seem reminiscent of the patterns on the Honkai Star Rail start screen. I'm not trying to assert or even suggest anything here, just pointing out a fun thematic connection. Don't listen to me, I'm having a goof. Okay, so a few final thoughts that didn't really fit anywhere else. You know how the sky is this dark space red? Like, not the foggy overcast red of the Cataclysm, but this deep nebula red. It reminds me of this description of the sky from Time Trekker. The sky that loomed overhead was not blue, but a dark red adorned with countless stars, pale and distant, like salt frost lining the shore. I find this interesting because the main character of Time Trekker witnesses this dark red beyond time. That is, at year 0. To me, it sounds like the primordial sky, which fits with this idea of the sky beyond the firmament being some sort of primordial chaotic abyss. Okay, and my actual final thought. I know a lot of people hate the trope of it was all a dream. But I really want to emphasize that from some angles, this can create the biggest existential dread of them all. Let me put it this way. Isn't it horrifying to think about? What if the worst day of my life was just the idle thought of a really bored god? That feels bad, doesn't it? Anyway, happy Halloween. Please check your smoke detectors and please like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, bye, thanks.